Started. Hi and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to tonight's webinar. And we're going to begin the program shortly as we wait for other folks to arrive. Please feel free to open up that Learning Lab evaluation so you can tell us your thoughts. It helps us to improve our program and gives you a chance to give us ideas on future topics. We greatly appreciate your feedback. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Sarah, and I'm one of Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake's Program and Outreach Coordinators. And we'd like to just go over a brief tech orientation that you'll see on the next slide, just to ensure a pleasant experience for tonight's program. And first, we ask that you keep yourself muted during this presentation. Also, if you have to get up and move around, we please ask that you turn off your camera. This session is being recorded. So again, if you do not wish to be shown, please turn your camera off now. Just as a reminder, there will be Q&A at the end where you'll be able to unmute or use the chat function at the bottom if you choose. And that chat function is also a wonderful way to ask for help should you need it during tonight's program. One of our IPC staff here tonight will be happy to help. And next you'll see a lovely staff photo. This is from our last holiday party. There I am up front. And if you're in the DMV area and looking to connect, please contact me. My phone and email is right there at the bottom. And next you'll see a program lineup where we will begin with a land acknowledgement and an opening reflection, followed by some information about our organization from new folks in the room. And we'll get to hear from our inspiring speakers. Afterwards, we'll open up the floor for Q&A and we will close with a prayer. And so now if I may take a moment to have a land acknowledgement for these waters that were stewarded by many who came before. Please join us in recognition while muted. For today, we hold space for reflection on and gratitude for the land upon which we live and the local waters that support and nourish us all. We recognize that this land and these waters were stewarded by many who came before. We reflect together as people of faith in response to the calling of our hearts, to come alongside the original stewards of this land and these waters that sustain us all. We seek to change the narrative of this story, our story, towards one of harmony with the gifts of creation and all living beings. We ask you to honor and learn from their intimate connection, love, and appreciation of these sacred lands and waters. Thank you for taking that moment of reflection. And to learn more about this, there's a link in the chat that shares some of the history for the original stewards. But just please keep in mind that that link shares the most recent. It's roughly 500 to 1,000 years prior. Which we know there's more than 15,000 years of Indigenous history in our region. Thanks so much for putting that in the chat, Natalie. And now I'd like to open with this reflection. This is one of my favorite books. I love the Psalms. That they have such great uplifting messages. This is Psalm 8, verses 3 through 9, titled Creator of All Life. When we consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what are humans that you are mindful of us? Human beings that you care for us. You have made us little lower than the angels and crowned us with glory and honor. You made us rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under our feet, all flocks and herds, and the animals of the wild, the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea, all that swim that pass of the sea. God, our creator, how majestic is your name in all the earth. So thanks for sharing that with me. I love sharing these moments together, but now I'd like to shift gears. And we want to give a huge thanks to our sponsors that fund our work. As you can see on this slide, they give us the capacity to operate as a connector organization. And you'll take a look on this next slide. It kind of helps to illustrate this pretty puzzle. So you can see that we help congregations find resources who are interested in environmental stewardship projects, and they're looking for support from local government agencies. And if you want to learn more with partnering with us, if you look on the next slide, we'll put a link for our One Water partnership. These are some folks that are already part of the movement, and we'll give a link for that pledge. We also want to mention our next Green Team training, which is this March 2024. If you haven't signed up yet, please do. We have that open to all. Or you could just check out our resource page on the next slide. And there's a link, and you can use that to help build and strengthen your efforts at your places of worship and at home. So now let's just jump into why we're all gathered here this evening. Let's give a very warm welcome to someone I always enjoy learning from and working with. She's an amazing partner of ours. We're so thrilled to continue to work towards shared goals. She is the director of Interfaith Power and Light. Please welcome Joelle Novey.
Hello. Good evening. I'm Joelle Novey, she, her pronouns with Interfaith Power and Light, and we love working with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. Um, um, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake supports so many of your congregations in caring for our shared watersheds, and we invite you to explore taking action for climate on climate change and shifting to cleaner energy with Interfaith Power and Light. I wanted to tonight just talk about some of the work we've done to support congregations that are interested in putting up solar panels, and to talk about what we've learned in the last decade and a half from talking to all of the congregations that we know of in this region that have successfully put up solar panels. So I'm going to share our website, which is also in my name there, if you want to find that link for yourself. I just want to share some of the resources you can find on our website about going solar. For some reason, I'm not seeing it nice and big. Are you all seeing it nice and big? Like it's taking the whole screen?
Yes.
Huh, okay. Let me just move myself. Okay. Now I'm looking at what you're looking at. So the first thing I wanted to share is that for the number of years, we have been trying to learn from all of the congregations that we have heard about, faith communities that have successfully put up solar panels. And the first one of those in the fall of 2009 was St. Albans Parish in Washington, D.C. on the grounds of the National Cathedral. And they talked about the panels as being our newest stained glass windows that proclaimed our story to the world. And it is really, you know, it gets very quickly into financing and details and logistics, but it's important for everyone to remember that shifting our congregations to cleaner power, actually powering the places where we pray and praise the Creator, powering those places in ways that sustain creation and don't cause harm the way burning fossil fuels do, is a very powerful step that we can take. And it also is a beacon in our communities that sets an example for others. So I wanted to make sure, first of all, to say, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit so you can see it here, but you can play around on our website, that we have a map on our site where we have, you can look around and look near you and pop open specific congregations that have gone solar and learn about how many kilowatts and who did it and how they financed it. And it's just a way of making sure we're all learning from each other. We found that there was a tendency that one congregation went solar and then there'd be an article in the newspaper and everyone would call them. And then the next one would go solar, and we wanted to be a place where folks could get a sense of the sector as a whole. So I want to first encourage folks to explore that map as a way of getting a sense of the full picture. The other thing I wanted to talk about is what we've learned, and you'll hear from some of the other speakers about other pathways, but for us, what we've heard is that in many, many cases, the way that the congregations that have successfully gone solar in our region have done so is by power purchase agreement financing. And that, so I wanted to just take the next few minutes to explain what that is and why it has become a fairly common way for congregations to go solar. So power purchase agreement financing, or abbreviated as PPA financing, arranges for congregations to go solar at no upfront cost for a third party to own the panels and sell the congregation the power for less than the power than they had been paying per kilowatt hour for that power before. So congregations are finding a private company to put up solar panels at their own expense, and the company owns those panels and electricity they produce, and the company sells the congregation the power produced by the panels at a price lower than the congregation was paying for that power from the grid before. Sure. When congregations go solar through a power purchase agreement, the power purchase agreement is the terms. When a congregation goes solar through a power purchase agreement, the PPA governs the terms under which the congregation purchases solar energy from the private company. And that's sort of the thing that the congregation is negotiating with the developer, that agreement. We'll talk about how these are structured, but just briefly, why do congregations go solar with power purchase agreements? These arrangements emerged at a time when the federal tax credit for solar, the 30% federal tax credit, it's now 30%, was unavailable entirely to nonprofit organizations because they didn't pay any taxes, so they couldn't enjoy the tax credit. That's not true anymore. The Inflation Reduction Act made the federal tax credit available to nonprofits through a program that is called direct pay that's just rolling out now from the Treasury. That said, power purchase agreement financing still might make sense for a lot of congregations, and we're still pretty big fans of this approach. Because solar arrays are still more profitable for private companies than for the congregation, and we'll talk about why. Because power purchase agreement financing allows congregations to go solar at no out-of-pocket cost, none, maybe even a slight savings, and because power purchase agreements shift many of the risks, responsibilities, and hassles of putting up solar away from the congregation and onto the owner of the panels. So this is where I always stop and make sure that people heard me correctly. Wait, companies are putting up solar projects on congregations for free? How is that possible? So especially in Maryland and DC, yes, it is possible. Over 100 local congregations have gone solar on our map, and many, many of them are using PPA financing. It's real, it's kosher, and it's not too good to be true. But why? Why is anyone willing to put up expensive solar panels for free on congregations and sell them the power for less than they were using before? I am. Jackson. Somebody needs to mute. Okay. So very quickly, I'm going to just talk about it from the company's perspective, from the developer's perspective. How do they make money on power purchase agreement projects with congregations? How are these companies making their money back? Because it's important to be able to understand from their perspective so that you can be an empowered consumer and an empowered customer of their proposals. Okay, number one, federal tax credit. 30% of the cost and labor of the entire project is the first way they make their money back. As I mentioned, and I'll say it again, because there's increasingly a lot of interesting questions about this. For many years, this was unavailable to nonprofits at all, and therefore PPAs really made sense, and they were the only path that made sense. Now, the Treasury has made the federal tax credit available to nonprofits through direct pay, which is a special new thing from the Inflation Reduction Act. And on this site, if you are curious about this, you can watch a webinar from our friends at Collective Sun about how to apply for the direct pay. Treasury Department, US Treasury Department is doing webinars, office hours to tell people how this is going to work because they're just rolling it out now. But as I said before, there's a number of reasons that power purchase agreements are still worth exploring, even now, with the federal tax credit being technically available to nonprofits. So first, the federal tax credit. That's one way that the people, whoever owns the panels, makes their money back. There are state incentives to different degrees and depending on the situation in Maryland, DC, and Virginia that are sometimes tax-based too. Here's the big one, depreciation. This is a major, major way that developers make their money back on solar projects that is unavailable to nonprofits. And it's also largely invisible. So it's a big way that these projects are lucrative for developers that you might not see directly. So depreciation is that properties like solar arrays lose value over time, and you are allowed to deduct the loss of the value from your taxable income. Now, solar panels can last 20 to 30 years. They lose their real value very slowly because they generate power for 2 decades, 3 decades, and they only degrade a little bit each year. But there's an accounting convention, a trick on paper that allows for tax purposes that owners of solar panels can depreciate their value entirely in 5 to 7 years. This is an on paper loss of value, not a true loss of value, but it means that the entire value of the solar project can be depreciated against the owner's tax liability in the first 5 to 7 years, which is a huge boon for the developer that owns the project and of no use at all to the nonprofit congregation that doesn't pay taxes. The fourth thing is solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs. So working together with many of your congregations, we have fought for and won strong renewable portfolio standards, which are clean energy laws. And there are now RPS requirements in all of the jurisdictions we serve, in DC, in Maryland, and in Virginia, that require the utilities in those states to purchase a certificate called an SREC from those who own solar in the state for each 1,000 kilowatt hours generated. This is what they call a compliance-based market. These SRECs have value because the utilities are required by law to purchase them. And if they can't purchase enough of the SRECs to fulfill the requirement, they have to pay a fine, which is called an alternative compliance payment. In practice, the alternative compliance payment sets the market because the utilities aren't really as motivated as we are to care for creation. They are just trying to fulfill their requirements. So if they're willing to pay up to the fine to purchase the SREC, and if not, they'll just pay the SREC alternative compliance payment. So this is a way that this is another lucrative opportunity for those who own solar panels. Now, how lucrative depends a lot on the region that you live in. And one of the things you'll see really clearly if you poke around on our map that I started with is that even though faith communities are just as motivated to care for creation and to invest in clean energy in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, the number of successful congregational solar projects is so much more concentrated in DC, and then somewhat less in Maryland, and then even less in Virginia. That's not because people care any less or support clean energy any less. It's because the laws in DC are much stronger, and so the SREC market in DC is much more lucrative, very dramatically more lucrative. And one of the links here you'll find down here is a link to a website that does live updates of what SRECs are worth. But I will say that like the value of SRECs, which is based on laws, is dramatically different in the 3 different jurisdictions and controls a lot of what is financeable in each place. DC has the white hot solar market based on their SREC prices. Maryland is pretty good, and Virginia is less than that. I will also say SRECs are only a sure bet in the short term. They're based on laws that could change. There's also the world of SRECs has given rise to SREC futures markets, essentially. There's aggregators that will buy all the SRECs that your solar panels will ever produce in 30 years. And in exchange for the risk they're taking by giving you money up front, instead of having you find out what they're worth over time, they will give you less than they'll probably be worth. And that's one way that solar developers often recoup some of their investment right up front by selling all the SRECs that the panels will ever produce to an aggregator who gives them, 80 cents on the dollar or something of what they'll probably be worth. Okay. Finally, so notice that we talked about 4 ways that the developer who owns the panels makes their money back, and we haven't done anything that directly related to the congregation yet. But the 5th way is the PPA payments from the congregation. In other words, the power purchase agreement that sets the term on which the congregations will pay the company that owns their solar panels for the power generated by those panels, and the percentage by which this rate will escalate each year, called an escalator. If you ask a solar developer to propose a PPA to your congregation, they will ask you first for the 12 months of your energy bills, and they will try to get your price per kilowatt hour just a little sliver under what you're paying now, so that the whole project is a net savings, or at least wash with what your current expenses. I will say the real way that power purchase agreement solar projects save you money is not over the previous year. It's that it locks in your energy prices for the portion of your energy bill that's covered by the panel. So over time, those energy bills from the grid are expected to go way up, and they're out of your control. That the utility can raise your grid prices dramatically without you're being able to do anything about it. You're really at their mercy. Whereas if you sign a power purchase agreement that says your price per kilowatt hour is locked in at your current prices, plus it's going to go a year or 2% a year, you have you can lock in stable energy prices, and the avoided costs of what you would have spent if you'd been on grid energy all that time is going to be very, very dramatic. So it's really the avoided costs of rising energy prices that are the real savings from power purchase agreement solar projects. And it's worth remembering that power purchase agreements are only a little part of how solar developers are making their money back. And we talked about all those other 4 ways. It's worth also noting that in DC, where I mentioned that the SRECs are extremely valuable, there's even 0 PPAs, which means that the nonprofit or building that the solar is on are getting the solar panels for free, and the energy they produce also for free, because the company is making so much money on the project, they don't need the energy payment at all. That's mostly just in DC. Okay, so I'll wrap up here, but I want to just talk about some big picture ideas that I would invite those who are interested in going solar on your congregations and are interested in this pathway, the power purchase agreement pathway, to keep in mind.
Joelle, before you jump into that next section, it looks like Carrie has a question. What if the place of worship needs a new roof? So maybe we can hear from the audience.
Sure, that's a great question. Sorry, I didn't see it. I won't try to move my chat so that I guess it's not blocking anything. So it's not advisable to put solar on a roof that's going to need to be replaced within 2 or 3 years. If you are imminently needing a new roof, get the new roof first. That said, it's often the case that solar developers will want to put solar on a roof that's maybe, has 10 years of life left. And you can get written into the power purchase agreement proposal that that at least once during the term of the power purchase agreement, the company agrees to remove the panels and let you re-roof and replace them at no cost. And in other words, that you could build in, power purchase agreements are, financed proposals, and depending on how much wiggle room there is in terms of how profitable the project is, there may be a way to, say, well, we want at least one re-roof opportunity during the term of this power purchase agreement. In a very promising situation, like in Montgomery County, we have the Montgomery County Green Bank. In DC, we have these extremely valuable SRECs. So there's a number of places in our region where you might even be able to explore incorporating the new roof into your power purchase agreement proposal from the company. Maybe they would do that. They might not be able to get your solar energy price below what you were paying before, but you might get, you might be able to explore getting the roof incorporated into the financing, depending on again, how lucrative the project is as a whole for them. But yeah, so but yes, the quality, what your roof is made of and how many years it has left is like a gateway question for getting started with these projects.
Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead, Joel.
Okay. So I need to wrap up. The big picture points are, these companies are willing to prepare to offer congregations such favorable terms because they make money in all of these ways, not just from your power purchase agreement payments. The terms may be 20 years, but the companies are making most of their money back in the first few years. And we talked about some of so that they may be willing to negotiate before the end of the term. And the most important thing I want everyone to remember is the hardest part of going solar at a congregation is the people, not the panels, and to really do the slow, patient organizing work of explaining how this works and taking time, run towards the curmudgeons, embrace them, ask them all of their concerns and address their concerns proactively. Don't wait and don't avoid the people work. It really is people work. Make sure you understand PPA financing. Make sure every decision maker in your congregation understands PPA financing. And then plan to get in touch with us, and we'll help you find which developers might be interested. And they will ask you for 12 months of energy bills, what material your roof is made of, and how many years of life it has left. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Joelle, for that in-depth. I mean, I really understand that this topic needs more time, so we'll have to have you back. It's encouraging to hear like how many congregations are getting involved and how this relates to faith. And I want to follow up this excitement about solar and open up the floor to Jennifer Schneider. She's from Solar Landscape, and so she's going to talk about some of those other options that are available.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Joelle, as well. So I'm a developer example.
Don't forget your supplements.
Oh, sorry, someone. Just sharing my slides. Oh. Everyone can see this okay? Wonderful.
Yes.
So again, my name is Jennifer Schneider and I'm with Solar Landscape. We are a predominantly community solar developer, but we have also done PPAs with congregations and schools when they go out for RFP. But we've become, since 2012, one of the leading community solar developers in the country, with the largest portfolio serving low to moderate income households. And I want to mention that we are a New Jersey company. I'm currently calling you from Asbury Park, New Jersey. If anyone's a Bruce Springsteen fan, might ring a bell. But we now are in Maryland, and we are currently hiring a community engagement specialist in Maryland. So I would like to, I'll share that link either in the chat later or as a follow-up. And we were referred to IPC by our friends at the League of Conservation Voters. We're a close partner with New Jersey LCV, and Maryland LCV introduced us to Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. So I had the pleasure of being at the breakfast this fall and meeting some of you. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know everyone better. And just my own personal watershed background, I actually previously served as an AmeriCorps Watershed Ambassador here in New Jersey with Hackensack Riverkeeper. So I'm, again, excited to support and partner with IPC and other Maryland environmental community organizations and nonprofits. I wanted to share a quick background on how community solar works before I get into what the enabling legislation actually was in Maryland. But I know some folks I saw in the chat are calling in too from Pennsylvania. So currently there is no community solar program in Pennsylvania, but there is pending legislation. There is a current pilot program for community solar in Maryland and a permanent program that was recently enabled by new legislation. So how community solar works is, and I know Lynn Heller will be sharing more as well about community solar and from different perspective for Climate Access Fund. So we are a for-profit developer. So our company's practice is to look for real estate entities such as Public Storage in Maryland, where they have a lot of rooftop space, and we pay them a lease payment to be a tenant on their rooftop. And we apply along with interconnection approval to the local utility to actually have a community solar project that can send power back out into the grid, as you see in the center of this picture. And then it's allowed to remotely bring savings to those who otherwise would not be able to access savings associated with either owning your own solar, rooftop solar, or if you're an apartment dweller and that could never be an option for you. So community solar is chiefly about access for everyone, and is a key part of Maryland's energy equity goals. And I don't want to delve too deep into this because many of you might already know this, but the key components of community solar are local clean energy generation, energy equity, and guaranteed cost savings, especially for those who might not have the option to go solar. So going solar yourself or having a PPA agreement is definitely the greatest savings, especially if you as a congregation are a really high energy user. It's predominantly geared towards residential homes. And I just want to jump back to anyone calling in from a congregation in Pennsylvania. This is the current House Bill 1842 about community solar, and pa4communitysolar.com, that link at the bottom. I'm not personally a part of the organization, but I just wanted to be sure to share an educational resource for anyone calling in from Pennsylvania and wants to learn more about community solar and active efforts to try to bring a program to the state. And the rest will really be focused on what we have in Maryland. And don't know where my slide went. The next slide was meant to be, sorry, one moment. I don't want to jump around too much. I think I switched the slides. Okay, I think I accidentally deleted it, but it had the name of the bill number in Maryland as well that enabled the permanent community solar program. We're currently in the pilot phase still. So all the projects that I'll be talking about shortly that Solar Landscape has developed are part of the last year of the pilot program. The permanent program will go into effect January 2025. So for speaking just for Solar Landscape, and want to reiterate, we're not the only community solar developer in the state. There are many. We are just one, and this is an example. So we have the largest community solar portfolio currently in Maryland for specifically low-income residents. Our goal is for 51% of each project's production to be reserved for low-income households and affordable housing providers. So for example, here in New Jersey, we help enroll many supportive housing nonprofit organizations like Easter Seals that have group homes, and they're able to retain the savings and ensure that the savings benefit tenants and services and further support their mission for where they live. So currently our projects for Solar Landscape are eligible utility-wide in BGE and PEPCO. So if you're calling from the Eastern Shore, For example, we don't currently have project availability, not to say we won't in the near future, but I would recommend that you look into other local projects that might be available for you to subscribe to if going solar on your own home, or if you don't own your own home, is not possible for you. Our current discount rate for these projects is 25% for low-income residential households. So as long as you pay an electric bill in BGE or Pepco, you are eligible. The discount rate just varies on how we applied into this program to prioritize low-income households. So the discount rate we set is 5% for all others. So that could be non-income restricted households or non-residential meters, such as a congregation whose roof or any other factor, such as a lot of large old growth trees that you don't want to cut down and shade your entire congregation, then community solar might be a good option for you. And this is just a clearer picture of what is highlighted at the bottom of this graphic here of one of our projects on public storage facility in Owings Mill, Maryland. And if you're wondering, that's wonderful, how do I actually enroll my individual household? I'm interested this evening to look into this further and possibly sign up. You're welcome to go to solarlandscape.com. And we've actually partnered with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake to have a partner referral invite code. So if you are interested in signing up, and again, there's many options, including, I believe Interfaith Power and Light is also partnered with Neighborhood Sun with a similar donation referral program. So certainly look at all options out there and what you might be interested in. But if you'd like to sign up, we are partnering with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. And if you sign up, we're able to donate towards them. And all you have to do is enter your zip code as an example here. So I entered 21401 and then IPC 2024, and then it will redirect you to our landing page with Arcadia, who we've contracted with as our billing provider, since Maryland doesn't yet have community consolidated billing. That will be part of the permanent program in 2025. So in the meantime, we've partnered with Arcadia because we, as a company, don't have a billing service. So they offer a summary billing experience, and it would be a longer presentation to explain all the ins and outs of community solar, but I'm here as a resource, as many others are. And I just wanted to highlight, I actually went through the map of all the congregations who have thus far signed IPC's partner congregation pledge, and there's almost 100 within BGE and Pepco that are currently eligible. So if your congregation is suitable and interested in having solar in your own congregation, you should absolutely do that. But if for any reason your actual congregation is not suitable for solar, let's say it's a dome shape and you can't put panels on it, or like I said, it's completely shaded, this could be something you can consider for that 5% discount rate. And if that is something you're interested in because you can't go solar on your own, I would recommend that you reach out to me. This platform is geared towards household accounts. And I also wanted to mention another way that we partner with local communities. If you or anyone in your community might be interested, we have several programs as part of our workforce training program. We have a Green Ambassador program, scholarship program annually for high school students, and that's nationally. So this year there were students that won from New Jersey and Illinois. We'd love for more Maryland high school students to become involved. We also have an award-winning program called Step Up. It's a hands-on training for adults that are interested in actually entering the workforce and building out all of these projects, whether they be residential solar projects, PPA solar projects on congregations, or these large-scale community solar projects. And we also have a Train the Trainer program where our team offers, and these are all free, hands-on career and technical assistance for teachers that are interested in introducing their students to jobs in the green energy economy. This is just a sample of partners that we've implemented or hosted trainings with. One of the main ones is Job Corps. So you see Step Up Maryland on here. We've had trainings with Woodland Job Corps. I almost said Woodlawn because I know there's Woodland and Woodlawn. It was Woodland and Job Corps in Laurel, Maryland that we had a training with last year. We're planning another one for this spring. So our team provided 2 weeks of additional curriculum and supplies and materials dedicated towards jobs in solar panel installation. And I know I went super quick because we're a little over on time. So I wanted to try to wrap up, but I know I'm happy to answer more questions after. Oops, here, this is my contact information as well. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I greatly appreciate the changes on the fly. And it's really exciting to see that there are many options available to folks. And we want to make sure we can connect you with anyone that's interested. And so in the post recording, we're going to send everyone's contact information as well and invite folks to connect. Next, I would love to invite to the floor Lynn Heller, who is the founder and CEO of Climate Access Fund, and their organization's mission, just like many on the call tonight, is to reduce energy burden of low-income households to the access of discounted clean energy. Lynn, please, the floor is yours, and thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you all the other speakers and folks who are participating on the call. I want to thank the other speakers in particular because you made my job a lot easier tonight because Joelle laid out a really great sort of solar financing 101 particularly for power purchase agreements, but really a lot of that applies to other solar financing. And then Jennifer explained community solar, which is terrific. So I'm going to actually go through my slides fairly quickly. But let me just start by saying that we are and Joelle also mentioned the Montgomery County Green Bank. We are, next slide, please. We are a nonprofit green bank. So we are, I don't know if everybody knows what green banks are, but they're basically financing institutions. They're not, it's a misnomer. They're not actually banks, but they are financing entities that really are established to plug gaps in markets that are slowing down the process of sort of clean energy and increasingly water-related climate solutions, the implementation of those solutions. So private markets cover some things. Private markets cover for-profit solar developers who do a lot of projects en masse, or they do large projects. You know, there are economies of scale that allow for-profit projects to occur using typical traditional financing, private sector financing. Where green banks come in is where there might be, let's say, smaller projects, or there might be different ownership, or there might be a lot of low-income households who really can't afford to participate en masse because a project or a for-profit developer has private investors and it's not financeable. So we come in, that's where green banks come in. They say, okay, well, what are our climate goals? How do we get there? And what financing problems are there or challenges are there that are preventing us from getting to our goals? So that's what a green bank is. We're a nonprofit green bank. The state of Maryland has 3 green banks. The Maryland Clean Energy Center is sort of officially the state green bank. It operates statewide. Montgomery County has its own green bank, as Joelle referred to. Both of those were started by government. The third green bank that Maryland has is the Climate Access Fund. And we are a nonprofit that was not started by an arm of government. We were started just from scratch 6 years ago. And we're an unusual green bank in that, like Montgomery County, MCEC, they finance a lot of different clean energy products. We really focus on one segment of one market, and that market that we focus on is community solar. The segment that we focus on is low-income access to community solar. So similar to what Solar Landscape does, we focus on the low-income community solar market segment, really only just in Maryland. Next slide. We can go on to the next one because Jennifer did such a great job explaining what community solar is. So let me talk a little bit about what sets us apart from other actors in the community solar market. So we've been around for 6 years in Maryland. I'll jump to number 4, which is advocacy. We have been very instrumental from the beginning of community solar in doing a lot of legislative and then regulatory advocacy before the Public Service Commission really focused on maximizing benefits to low-income households. And as the market has evolved, what's great is that we have had so many actors coming into Maryland to do community solar. And now that there's more money available through the federal government, through the state government, we have a lot more private sector actors, for-profit developers like Solar Landscape that can afford to do low-income community solar. So it's the pie is getting larger, and it's fabulous because our mission is really just to maximize the numbers of low-income households and communities that can benefit. So what we do is we fill 3 gaps that we've identified in the market. The first gap is that while we have wonderful companies like Solar Landscape that are doing low-income community solar, their investors own the systems, right? That's just by definition for-profit developers. The way they get their money a lot of times is by owning the system long-term. What we do is we try to say, okay, how can we use community solar to really maximize benefits to local communities? So we actually also, a little bit as a developer, we identify smaller sites like a single school or congregation that the private sector probably wouldn't be able to finance because it was too small. And we maximize the numbers of low-income households that can benefit and the savings that they can reap. So we originate and develop low-income community solar projects. All of our projects require that at least 50% of the power that's generated on the rooftop is reserved for low-income households. We don't serve any non-low-income households. We reserve some power for the host site. So for example, if a congregation decided they like the idea of the PPA, but maybe they actually also like the idea of benefiting low-income households, they could do community solar with either Solar Landscape or with the Climate Access Fund, or both, because we partner with Solar Landscape. They could do both. They could get half the power for the congregation and send half of the power back to the grid. Well, the power would all go back to the grid, but half of the power would benefit the congregation and half of it would benefit low-income households. So then the second gap that we've identified in the market is that Solar Landscape, I will say, is very unique in its commitment to low-income community solar, and also in its, because it operates in many, many states and it's a large company, it is able to offer financing that is really attractive to low-income households. A lot of for-profit developers are not able to do that. So the Climate Access Fund brings in lower cost financing to help develop for-profit developers like Solar Landscape serve more low-income households or provide a greater discount. And then the third thing that we've noticed in the market is that a lot of times for-profit developers or for-profit projects, if a low-income household doesn't pay their bill, they're one time, they're kicked off the books. And what we do is we provide financing that says to the developer, okay, well, if we make you whole for 4 months, you let the low-income subscriber not pay their bill for 4 months, give them 4 tries, we will make you whole. We'll give you the money so that you can give them other tries. So you don't have to kick them off right away, because that a lot of times a low-income household might, for example, have a rough month, right? They had a medical procedure that they had to pay for partially out of pocket, so they couldn't meet their bills, but the following month, maybe they could. So we have what we call a guarantee product that fills that gap. So numbers 1, 2, and 3 are the 3 gaps we've identified in the market. Next slide, please. So how exactly do we do it? Similar to solar landscape, we reduce the household energy burden. We create work-based learning opportunities and local jobs through our projects. And we finance developers like Solar Landscape that also do that. A way that we're really unique is that we allow for community-based organizations to own the solar systems themselves. So as we said before, for-profit developers own the systems. We have said, okay, well, that's great and really important, because we need the private markets to help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But what about seeing if we could figure out a way for community-based organizations like congregations who are interested to actually own the solar systems themselves? So that's how we build up local community-based wealth. Next slide. So what I really want to do is tell you about a demonstration project we have, because this is the type of project that we are replicating around the state. And it will show you sort of some of the components of why our approach is unique. So there's a school in Baltimore City, in East Baltimore, called the Henderson Hopkins School. And it is public contract school technically, but it's essentially a charter school. And it serves 95% of its student body is Black and low income. They come from around the neighborhood, right around the school in East Baltimore. And the solar project that we're developing on their rooftop is going to serve about 150 low-income families. 100% of the solar power will serve low-income families. And that was a decision made by the school leadership, who wanted to maximize the benefits to their students' families. But they could have easily said to us, we want half the power. And so then we would have said, okay, well, around 75 low-income families will benefit, and the school will benefit and get a discount on their electricity bills. We're actually starting construction on the project next week. So it's really exciting. It is unusual because private markets would not have financed this project, because it is too small and because it is 100% for low-income households. So we had to raise different capital, and being a green bank, we can do that. Next slide. And these are the benefits that the project, and I'm going into detail about this because this is the kind of model that if one of you in your congregations, we're just laying out a lot of options. You can do a PPA, you can go with Solar Landscape, you could also do a project which is a little more locally targeted. Reduction on energy bills for low-income households. At Henderson Hopkins, we're partnering with a local entity. I don't know how many of you are from Baltimore, but Civic Works is a local nonprofit that does job training and particularly in solar. And so we will have some of their trainees up on the roof, like Solar Landscape has their their training program. And then, of course, where it's reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I will say we also have a school, an after-school program for 6th graders in the school that we have raised money to implement. So we really are looking, and the ownership of the solar asset, we as a nonprofit will be owning it, but some of the benefits will go to the low-income subscribers. who pay their bills regularly and on time in the form of increased discount. So the whole idea of this project and all the projects that we are doing, we have projects in development in Western Maryland, actually Prince George's County, and Baltimore County, and again in Baltimore City. And the whole idea is really maximizing local benefit. And that is both low income households and then the nonprofit hosts who either host the system itself or who decide they might want to be owners of the system. You don't have to own the building to own the system. Next slide. I'm not going to go into great detail. I've already kind of talked about this, but these are sort of some of the benefits of organizations, and then also the benefits to the community. I see a question: where in Baltimore County? We have another charter school actually in Baltimore County. That is where we're developing a project. We've also talked to some synagogues. A synagogue in Baltimore County that is, we're trying to figure out. I should emphasize, we don't only look at rooftop solar, we also look at parking canopy solar. So synagogues or congregations that may have, where the rooftop might not work, may have a big parking lot that could also work. Next slide. We work anywhere in Maryland, but we prioritize sites that are considered disadvantaged. This is just sort of Prince George's County, just as an example. These are some of we wouldn't do work in Washington, D.C. because we're a Maryland-based entity and we have the D.C. We would not actually work in Montgomery County either because we have the Montgomery County Green Bank. So our role isn't really as needed, but the rest of Maryland is where we operate. Next slide. So just contact us if you're interested. There are, these number of different ways. I'm not going to read through them, but that you could become a partner to the Climate Access Fund. If you're an individual, sign up. I'm a community solar subscriber. We get a 10% discount on our electricity bills. And it's wonderful because it feels like we can't put solar on our rooftop, but through community solar, we save money. We're always looking for new partners, whether they be community-based organizations interested in owning, whether they be congregations who might have a rooftop or a parking lot. We could absolutely work with Solar Landscape as a financier. So there's lots of different ways. Our goal is just to maximize the amount of solar going to benefiting low-income households. So if that sounds appealing to a congregation, contact either Solar Landscape or us, and we'd love to talk with you. And the next slide, I think, has my contact information. Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And we do have your contact information, and we're going to make sure folks get that. This has been such a really in-depth and educational learning lab on all the solar options. So we're going to keep it to this topic, and we will have Sherry on for a future webinar, which is coming up in April. And we'll give details about that because we wanted to stop here, as complex as this subject is, and open up the floor. And we may have a minute to answer just one pressing question. So I'm going to encourage folks to please put additional questions in the chat as I will look through the chat, and we will get those answers and connect folks. So yeah, if anyone has a pressing question, please feel free to unmute yourself and directly ask the speakers here.
I'll just say I know there was a bunch of questions in the chat. I hope I answered all of them, but please do verbally ask if I somehow missed it. Thanks.
You were wonderful, Jennifer. Thank you. Yeah, they're quite a bit that I'll be sifting through afterwards. So thanks to all the speakers who not only talked about all the different options, but again, answering in the chat. Joelle, I saw you too. Thank you so much for just getting back to folks quickly. I don't see that anyone has their hands raised or anyone's unmuting. So I'd love to just close with a reflection after we remind folks again one more time to please.
It looks like there's 2 questions actually. Folks just put in
perfect.
the chat.
Oh, can I get those to you afterwards, Jennifer? I'll go ahead. I see a couple more popping in. You're right.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I just thought, my bad.
No. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We ran a little bit over. This subject was way more in depth, and I'm so happy about that to see the excitement from all the congregations here. Thank you, Natalie, for putting the survey link in the chat. At the end, please feel free to give us some feedback on this. And so this is the reflection that I'd love to close with. This is a very beautiful, just a simple prayer. And if you would like to join me while muted, this really talks about the power of silence. And through the silence of nature, I attain thy divine peace. O sublime nature, in thy stillness, let my heart rest. Thou art patiently awaiting the moment to manifest through the silence of sublime nature. O nature sublime, speak to me through silence, for I am waiting in silence, like you, the call of God. O nature sublime, through thy silence, I hear thy cry. My heart is tuned to the quietness that the stillness of nature inspires. And thank you so much, everyone, for such an engaging webinar. This is surely a topic that we will be revisiting again. A special thanks to all the amazing speakers who just really educated us all on so many exciting different options that are available. I think folks were not aware that there's a lot of options available. So thank you again for joining us this evening. And I will get any other questions directed to the speakers. Thanks so much for your understanding. And I hope